Hello and welcome to the latest installment of PSG Talking. I'm your host Ed, and on today's show, we're talking all about PSG's scoreless draw against AS Monaco, Mbappe's controversial actions, and we're going to look ahead to next week's Champions League clash against Real Sociedad. And here to help me do that is a voice you haven't heard on these airwaves in a while, but we're so glad to have him back, Mr. Jon Olangi. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on the pod. How are things on your end?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Ed, for having me back on. I'm doing well. It's rainy here where I'm at in Charlotte, North Carolina. Weather's been pretty bad, so I'm okay being indoors right now, recording the pod. We got a lot to get into, but again, yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm glad to be back on. And what a time to reinsert myself back into this PSG thing.
Great timing. And just real quick, Charlotte, Soccer City. I saw the Charlotte FC there. I mean, you guys had 60,000 fans there or something just bouncing. It was a crazy atmosphere last weekend.
Yeah, the Charlotte, the football culture here, surprisingly to me, has been fascinating to see. And with a new team, this is like our third season, I believe, and they've got record turnout every inaugural game. The inaugural match, I think it was like a world record of the fans in attendance, and then this season again, 62,000. They're getting more people in the stands than the Carolina Panthers, so that says a lot. And people love American football. So
yeah, and I was at that stadium. PSG came when they actually did summer tours in America. They came and they played. I think it was Chelsea, and Zlatan was there.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, I was there, and it was a great atmosphere walking around there. It was fantastic. We'll have to get back there and visit. So, all right, let's just get into it. So we're recording this in the evening, Friday, March 1st. Let's react to the scoreless draw from earlier today between PSG and Monaco. And then, John, we'll kind of just focus on what happened on the pitch first, and then we'll get into all of the Mbappe stuff. So I'll start with some of my key takeaways from this match. You have to start with Gianluigi Donnarumma. He was my man of the match, just standing on his head, to borrow a hockey term, acrobatic saves. He was incredible all night. I thought if not for him, it probably was Monaco winning this one 2-0, if not even worse. I just thought he was brilliant. We'll touch on him a little bit more in a second here. I also thought Luis Enrique, he went with Nordi Mukiele at center back. I thought he was surprisingly good. He had to deal with Balogun, Ben Yedder, Akliouche, who had a couple great attempts on goal, Minamino at times. So they were just all coming at him. I thought he stood strong and played really well, had a really solid game. Vitinha, again, I thought he was great. Didn't jump off my screen, but he was solid in the midfield. He kept possession. PSG dominated possession. He was a big part of that. So got to give him credit there. Ugarte was sort of up and down for me. He would make a great tackle, but then give the ball away. So he just can't seem to put it together. And then lastly, I just thought Asensio, who has had a string of really good performances, I thought he was just really poor, just kind of sloppy passes and just couldn't get it together. It was ultimately subbed off. And then, speaking of players that didn't play well, I thought Gonzalo Ramos and, again, Kylian Mbappé, who was subbed off at halftime, they weren't great either. So those are kind of my overall thoughts. What were your takeaways from this one?
Yeah, honestly, I was finding it difficult to be interested in the match in terms of like I was waiting for something to happen. It was a lot of chances missed on both sides. I think Monaco had plenty of chances, and you pointed out Donnarumma pretty much standing on his head, and I thought he was the man of the match simply because nothing else really happened that was memorable for me. But it was good to see. You mentioned Ugarte; he didn't really stand out, but I think for me, given how he started the season, very hot, everyone is like, giving him all the praises. And when he got that injury, you can tell it kind of took a knock on him, and it took him a little while you can see he's kind of within the most recent matches, he's finding his form again. So I thought it, just kind of given how his season has been very up and down, it's good to see him trending back towards being that physical presence on the pitch that we need in that position. And I think when we talk about the Gonzalo Ramoses of the world, and if it's Colomani in that 9 position, I think the same issue we've been having all season, essentially with our strikers, is the lack of proper service to them. Like specifically Ramos, he's one of those forwards where he needs service. He's like a Cavani, a Zlatan, right? Like they need service to be effective, and we've seen when he has the chances, he can be effective. And so I think that really boiled down to why he was really kind of MIA in the match. And same for Asensio, I would say he was. Every time I watched, he was losing the ball and really losing the ball in critical areas of the pitch. And so I think overall for me, the match was kind of a dud. It wasn't really interesting outside of the substitution that we'll get into later. But I think likewise, my man of the match would be Donnarumma, because Monaco could have put this game to bed early in the first half, and I think Donnarumma made some incredible saves. There was one shot where Minamino pretty much sent it straight to him, sent the rocket to him, and he saved it. Those are close range saves. And like you said, we'll get into Donnarumma more, but I think that's overall, for me, the match wasn't really interesting. But if I could highlight anything, it'd have to be Donnarumma.
Yeah, fantastic. And, it's the final tune-up before facing Real Sociedad next week, and I was hoping for some goals. You always want to go into a big match, full of confidence. Seeing that ball hit the back of the net, you would like to see that, but not the case in this one. We mentioned Ugarte. I just wanted a couple stats: 9 ground duels won, 6 tackles, 2 interceptions. So he was doing all the work, defensively, which is exactly what you want him to do. But I just thought Monaco just had too many guys. I mean, they were coming in waves of attack, it seemed at times, and you would like Ugarte maybe to help be part of stopping that. I just thought that Monaco had too many chances against Donnarumma. And then looking at his stats, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say to that, I think, yes, Ugarte is that enforcer that's in that position to sort of break up those, those attacks and those waves of attack. But I think, for me, from what I've seen, where I can identify a weakness, a general weakness within, as Lucho is trying to build this roster, is defense. And I think it comes down to a lack of consistency in the center back pairing. We've seen how many center back pairings since the beginning of the season. Who's today was Mukiele and Beraldo. I think that's the first time they've played together, right?
We've seen Lucas Hernandez in there. We've seen Danilo in there.
Skriniar. And so forth and so on. So I think that dynamic of stability is what has caused PSG to be so leaky in defense all season. We've been scoring the goals. We're at top of the table, given all the circumstances, what's going on with the club. I think Luis Enrique has done a pretty fine job, I would say. But I think the one thing that would be a weakness that I can identify would be the defense being very leaky, and that not only starts with the midfield and the forwards also tracking back, but just a lack of stability and consistency with the center back pairings and the defense overall.
And you said PSG's been scoring the goals, but not on this night. And it was actually PSG had scored at least 1 goal in each of their last 26 games before tonight against Monaco. So didn't get it done. But let's talk about Gianluigi Donnarumma. He's a goalkeeper. Early in the season, I was like, do we need to start someone else? Do we bring Keylor Navas or the young kid? But tonight, he made 6 total saves. And of those 6, there were 3 diving saves, and 5 of them were inside the box. So he was really, without him, it could have been really ugly. Since he was sent off with that kind of karate kick that he had against Le Havre back in early December, he's really picked it up. He's been phenomenal. I wouldn't say he's great with the ball at his feet still. I think there's a lot of work to be done there, but I guess my question to you would be, does he need to have a flawless Champions League run? I don't know how long PSG can go, but does he need to not make any mistakes to really solidify being the PSG number 1 to reinstill confidence in the fan base that he's the guy? Does he need to have a good Champions League run?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a foregone conclusion, especially in the goalkeeping position in football. When you look at the clubs that have won the Champions League in the most recent years, we go from Alisson to Ederson to Thibaut Courtois. There's a level of consistency that they play with that other goalkeepers don't really play with. Those mistakes that we were highlighting for Donnarumma, as great as he is, Donnarumma is world class. I think we tend to forget that. This is the guy that we were clamoring, like, please get him, please bring him to PSG, and he would solve all of our goalkeeping problems. And now we have him, and we're nitpicking because we've been used to seeing goalkeepers who are good with the ball at their feet, who can distribute well. And so this is who he is, essentially. And you said there, if he can work on that side of his game, Ed, I don't know if that's possible at this age and in football and in this professional level. I don't know if that's something that he can necessarily work on, maybe minimizing the mistakes. Yes.
I think he's just too tall. He's too tall.
It's just not in him. Even today, I don't know if you saw, it was like early in the second half, like he tried to ping a ball over the strikers, and it just and Lucho and Luis Enrique actually caught the ball.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, so I don't think it's in him to be able to be that ball playing goalkeeper, but everything else, it's world class. And so in terms of, with the Champions League, he's going to be very important for us moving forward, especially given what I just mentioned with the lack of consistency in the defense and being so leaky. And what he did today proved that he can be important for us when the defense is not on top of their game. The midfield is kind of spread, and we're getting waves and waves of attacks coming at us. He can be that force to save us. But it's difficult to place the blame on one player. Like, if God forbid that we don't go far in the Champions League and we lose, like, it's not really going to be Donnarumma's fault. It's going to be a collective thing. The team didn't play up to par, but he can't have those mistakes. Like, so I guess if the question is the noise ever going to stop in terms of like us consistently questioning Donnarumma? Yes, he can't have those silly mistakes, which usually come down to his ball playing ability.
PSG just can't have any more silly mistakes from goalkeepers, whether it's Kevin Trapp, Buffon, Keylor Navas. Every season, it seems like one of those guys does something stupid and it costs the goal, and then all the heads drop and then the confidence leaves.
Yeah.
I just want him to, like, okay, maybe you're not good with the ball at your feet. Just don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
Kick it to Enrique on the sideline. Just don't give it away in a bad position. I don't want the goalkeeper to be the reason why we crash out. If we get beat by a better team, I can accept that. Just no stupid mistakes. And, we forget Donnarumma was the UEFA player of the tournament in the Euro 2020. So he is world class. He can get it done. Let's hope that he can just not be a reason why we get knocked out of the tournament. And hopefully we go all the way. But I don't want any more goalkeeper mistakes.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I didn't even realize, like, until you mentioned that, like, there is a history of Kevin Trapp and Buffon, and and
these are good. I mean, Buffon is legendary. Keylor Navas is world class. When we had him, and they come to PSG, and it seems like they just forget how to play the position and do something stupid. It's really head scratching. Let's stick with the PSG defense here, because Lucas Beraldo. He was recently called up to the Brazil national team. He's 20 years old. He comes over in January, steps right into the starting lineup here at PSG. I wouldn't say he's lighting the world on fire, but he's also not making, again, silly mistakes. He's been a solid player. Do you see him as potentially the next Marquinhos, as Marquinhos gets maybe ready this summer to go on to a new adventure potentially? Is Beraldo going to be that guy, that center back for us for years to come?
I think he has he's the prototype, right? Like, he has the pace, he has the strength, and the technical ability. He's comfortable on the ball compared to like a Skriniar, and I don't know if that's something people have noticed. When Skriniar was healthy, like, when he had the ball at his feet, it's almost like Donnarumma is like, I don't know, like, you feel a mistake. The mistake is coming. Like, for me, he doesn't get the ball out of his feet quick enough.
Look, I got a bad knee. I'm out of shape. I think I'm faster than Skriniar. That's for sure. I can beat him in a race.
Yeah, and so, from that perspective, given that context, I think he is that prototype, and he is that that type of player that can step right in which he has, and it's different dynamics. He's bringing competition into the position. We have Kimpembe, who's obviously injured, but when he gets back, how does that look? Skriniar, when he gets back, how does that look? And and Lucas Hernandez, who can play center back as well, and Danilo. And so, given all of those options from the injuries, from the players that are available, and the fact that he's been able to step right in and the level hasn't dropped, I think says a lot about his quality at only 20 years old. He's a left-footed player, which I always love in center backs because it brings a different dynamic into their ability to spread the ball out and really start attacks from the defensive side of the ball. And so I'm excited about him. For me, it's still kind of early to tell. I will say his first couple of games, I think they had him. Lucho put him like a left back or something, and he didn't seem to have his bits about him. But in the center back position, he looks comfortable, and I think he's very promising. And getting the call up to Brazil is no small thing. And I don't know if you saw. Speaking of Brazil, their new manager, he called up the wrong player. Can you imagine? I forget who the player was.
I didn't see this. So the was it Dorival Jr. I think is the. But so what happened? He called up the wrong player.
Yeah, he I think they had a similar names, and he said one of the guys' name, but it's not who he meant to call up. And so imagine being that player, you're at home with your family, and you're waiting for the Brazil call up, and then they call your name, and then you find out, hey, he didn't mean to actually call your name.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's that sucks. I saw that earlier. I thought that was pretty interesting. But for Beraldo, I think he's one to watch for sure. It's still kind of early to tell, but definitely one to watch.
Definitely one to watch, and he's one of the youngsters at PSG as we move forward after this season. It's going to be a youth movement, and he will certainly be part of it. I do think he's probably playing a lot of minutes out of necessity. We don't have a lot of defenders who are at a high quality that are capable of playing right now. They're either injured or whatever. Maybe they don't typically play center back. So he's making the most of these minutes, and maybe he makes a case. We know in the summer, Lenny Yoro could be a possible transfer target. I think we're going to strengthen the defense, and so he's sort of in the shop window right now and making the case of why he should be considered in a starting center back. So far, so good. I've just been impressed. He comes over. He's never been in the Champions League, and you would never know it from what we've seen so far.
Not at all. He's smooth. I like a calm defender.
Very calm. Yeah. So next Marquinhos, we'll tag him with that. We're almost, if you're listening, we're almost to the Mbappe stuff. Hang on, because I wanted to talk about this Monaco side.
Yeah.
A lot of really good talent in there. If you had to pick just one player this summer, and you could pick any of their players that were on the pitch tonight, or maybe if they were on the bench or injured, just looking at their squad, is there any player that you think PSG should maybe target as they get ready to lose a former Monaco player in Mbappe? Is there anyone there at Monaco you'd like to see next season?
Well, he's not really a Monaco player. Balogun, he's on loan, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I'll have to look that one up. Give me a second. But finish your thought, and I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, the forward today, Balogun, he's for me, if I'm looking at someone who I think can help our roster is him. He's a player who doesn't really rely on service. He can come deep, get the ball, run at defenders, and wreak havoc on the defense. And so if I was to highlight anyone from that team, it would be him. But again, I feel like he's on loan from Arsenal or somewhere.
He was on loan at Stade Reims last season, but actually Monaco paid $30 million transfer fee to bring him over from Arsenal. So yeah, he's a Monaco man.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, that would be my pick. But Monaco, they've been they lost or tied to like a fourth tier team in one of the cup matches a few weeks ago. I remember, and so I don't really. They're doing good in the league, obviously, but it's weird what's going on over there. But I think for me, Balogun would be my pick.
Yeah, Balogun's a good one. He's a U.S. men's national team player, so definitely like hearing that. I mean, they've got so many good players. I like Fofana. He's a good midfielder. Yes. But I've got to say, tonight, I was so impressed with Wilfried Singo, the right back from Ivory Coast. I mean, he was so strong. I mean, he bodied Mbappe off the ball. Mbappe was calling for a penalty, but I didn't see it. I just thought he was phenomenal. And if we are potentially looking at losing Hakimi in next season, Mukiele, is he the right back of our future? I don't know. I would look at a player like him, 23 years old, and see maybe if there's a deal to be done there, because I was just so impressed with him there tonight.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. That's a good call. I definitely saw that he stood out, especially with that that one on one with Mbappe. Definitely showed his strength, and he's fearless. And if we're speaking on the context of players possibly departing. I saw the Hakimi report saying that he also wants to leave, which came out of nowhere. But he seems to be good friends with Mbappe, so he might be seeing his future coming to a not being at PSG anymore. So that's a good call for Wilfried Singo.
That's right. Yeah, and he won the Africa Cup of Nations with the
Exactly.
Ivory Coast, and just looking, it looks like he joined Monaco from Torino last summer, 10 million euros. So good business for Monaco, as they always do. And transfer market's got his value at 18. I'm sure it'd be 50 million for PSG if they wanted him this summer. Even though the PSG
tax is evergreen. Yes.
Yes, Monaco will get paid. Nothing is cheap there in Monaco. That is for sure. Right. All right. Let's get into what happened at halftime of the Monaco match. Here it is. You've all been waiting. PSG, let's just set the scene here. PSG, they come out of the tunnel, and then we learn that Kylian Mbappe has been replaced by Colomwani. Seconds later, we start to see screenshots and video clips on social media of Mbappe on the phone in the tunnel. And not only that, not only is he on the phone, but then he's also changed out of his kit. He's in a hoodie. He's got the sweatpants on.
Man.
He's walking around the pitch. He's waving to the fans. He's taking, pictures and selfies. And then he heads into the stands, not on the bench. He heads into the stands to sit with his mom, and he watches the second half from there, smiling and whatever else he's doing there. We'll get to the post-match comments, but when you saw this, John, what was your initial reaction?
And I was shocked. I'm usually very even keeled as it pertains to Paris Saint-Germain news and the rumors and everything that happened at the club. But for this one, I'm equally as befuddled, slightly annoyed as a fan of the club that I love. I was shocked, honestly. It's like, no, there's no way. Like, there's no way he's in the stands sitting next to his mom, essentially smiling like it's nothing, and for whatever reason that he felt that he can do that. Well, I'll get to that later in terms of why I feel like he feels that he can do that. But my initial reaction was just shocked. I've never seen anything like that. A player who is not only a captain of the club, one of the best players in the world, just getting subbed off in the match, and you don't go sit with your brothers and your teammates.
He was the captain. He started the match as the captain.
As the captain, right? See, yeah, that's very much insane. That's the word for it. That's insane. And so there's no justifying that at all. And for me, I'm not going to absolve PSG because of what led up to this in terms of giving these players way too much power to the point where they feel like they could even do something like that. But we can save that for later and really just kind of look at how absurd it is what Mbappe did. And it's very disrespectful to not only your teammates, to the fans, to the club. And yeah, it didn't sit right with me at all.
Yeah. So my initial reaction was, we saw in that first half, he did go down. I think it might have been Singo who brought him down, or maybe it was another Monaco player. I don't remember, but he picked up a little bit of a knock. He was laying next to the Monaco goal, after he attempted a shot on goal, and he appeared to be in some discomfort. And so when he was subbed off, I was like, oh, maybe he's injured. But then the report started to come out in the second half that no injury, he's fine. And then when you saw him walking around, you're like, yeah, there's no limp. He's fine. There's nothing. There was no injury. So I thought, like you, I'm trying to be like, give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's an injury. Yeah. That wasn't the case. We also have to, level set and say he was kind of garbage in that first half. He was not the Mbappe that we all know, and he was not dangerous. He was pretty pedestrian, I gotta say.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one, but Luis Enrique apparently said, I had seen enough. 45 minutes was enough of that, and he said, you're out.
Yeah.
And so after we started learning he wasn't injured or anything, I'm like you. I was like, I have never seen this. When have you, in any sport,
Yeah.
football, American football, whatever, basketball, have you ever seen a captain taken off and they just go change into street clothes and go sit in the stands? I've never seen that.
It was insane. Absolutely insane. I don't know. I have a level of respect for Mbappe. And by the way, when I knew we were going to record this podcast, I was fully expected to come here and speak about Mbappe's departure. As like I appreciated what he done for the club, and I still do, but my tone has definitely changed just because of that what he did today. I think that you can't downplay how significant it is in the grand scheme of things in terms of moving forward, how PSG want to play without him. Like, should we just had sold him in the winter time? I mean, in the winter transfer, should we just have sold him last season when Real Madrid were offering 180 mil? Like, all of those questions start to come up because at this point it's not worth it. Because if Luis Enrique is trying to build the team and get them to start playing without Mbappe being so dominant and being reliant on him, this doesn't work for that. This messes up chemistry within the club. He still has friends in the club. Him and Dembele are good friends. Him and Hakimi are good friends, and so it's like we thought we got rid of this thing, with the Messi and Neymar's departure, but it's still here, and we have to ride this out until he leaves, and that's what's unfortunate.
Was it you or maybe James, who's been on the podcast? Someone said it's like he's given his 2 weeks notice and he doesn't give what. Like he's doing whatever he wants, like he is checked out.
Essentially, yeah, you got your you got the word out there that I'm not gonna be here.
He's got a new job,
Yeah. And he's comfortable and he's cool, and now you can show up late to work and really just piss off every now and then. I want to mention I watch a lot of Formula One, and Lewis Hamilton. If you're familiar with Lewis Hamilton, he's like the biggest
big
star.
race this weekend. I follow a little Formula One.
Yeah, and if you've heard, he's moving to Ferrari, which is the most storied team in that sport, and it's essentially a similar scenario where Mbappe is going to Madrid. Lewis Hamilton is the epitome of professionalism, and Mbappe, I know that legacy is important to him. Like, if you just listen to him speak and his mom and his representatives, if legacy is important to you, this doesn't add up. Professionalism is important. Lewis Hamilton has told everyone this is his final season racing with Mercedes, and he will be at Ferrari next season. So he has to race this entire season with Mercedes. There's no news coming out about him disparaging his former team or anything like that. You have to have a decorum about you and professionalism about you, especially if you want to go down as one of the GOATs. And I think Mbappe really did himself a disservice. And yeah, this is now Real Madrid and Florentino Perez's problem in the future. But for the next 3 or 4 months, it's still our problem, and that's the issue here.
Right. It's not a good look that this is happening, and I can't explain it at all. I don't know why he would be doing this. I mean, if you play devil's advocate, maybe PSG aren't being very kind behind the scenes. We don't know what's being said to him,
Well, Ed, I wanted to ask you that. I wanted to play. I played devil's advocate earlier in another group chat I'm in, and I asked this question. I said, okay, if we know Mbappe is leaving, but he still has to play out the rest of the season. We're still in Champions League. We're still in we're still fighting for trophies. Why is he being substituted in multiple matches? And in crunch time, essentially. It's not like he's being substituted at like 89th minute. We're already won the game. Like, he's being substituted when the game is still important. Like, what do you think it's coming from the top where Nasser is sort of playing mind games via Lucho, or I don't know. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate as to why they're subbing him,
It's interesting. I mean, what is it? He didn't start against Nantes, and everyone assumed it was because maybe he was tired. They played 3 days earlier against Real Sociedad, and then they go down a goal against Rennes.
Yeah.
And he's taken off. So you're losing, and then you take off your best player, your leader, your captain, superstar. Yeah. You take him off when you're down a goal, and then tonight you're chasing a game, and at halftime, 45 minutes, and you're just like, I've seen enough, and you take him off. Yeah. We can get into some of the post game because it ties into what you're asking. Luis Enrique is basic when he's asked about this. He says, "Look, we got to used to playing without Mbappe. We and he's always looking for the best option for the team." So that's what he's saying. Now we know how it works at PSG. Have they really turned a corner and given all of this power to the manager, or is Nasser calling the shots, or even above him? Is someone I do think is probably Luis Enrique, because he is playing. He's just being taken out at these odd moments that he's never been taken out before. So I think it is Luis Enrique ultimately making the decision, but I also think Nasser is probably like, do what you need to do. I think he has the backing of the ownership to do what he needs to do, and then ultimately this is what he's deciding.
Yeah, no, I can lean towards that as well, because Lucho seems to be very direct, and it seems that PSG, different from the other managers, they've really gotten behind Enrique in those decisions. But I wonder if against Real Sociedad, let's say today didn't happen, Mbappe didn't go to the stands with his mom. Against Real Sociedad in the week in the Champions League, was he going to sub him then? You know what I mean? Like
it's looking like it. I think he probably would if he's not getting it done. But what's interesting is there are other players in this first half who weren't playing well.
Right.
Gonzalo Ramos, they weren't taken off at halftime.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I don't know how you. And then so after the match, Luis Enrique was like, "Did you see Mbappe go to the stands? Do you have any?" He's like, "I only focus on what's going on the pitch. I don't pay attention to anything else." You can tell that he is media trained so well. You can tell he's been in Spain with Barcelona. He knows how media and journalists are. He is giving them nothing. But it's so foolish. It's like you've made other substitutions and you didn't realize Mbappe wasn't there. So it's all smoke and mirrors. Luis Enrique is not going to give us the real answers, what he's really thinking.
Yeah.
So you can react to that here in a second. And then also there was a report that apparently Mbappe's entourage, they assured that there is no controversy and that Mbappe is focused on PSG's next match, and that it was actually Luis Enrique who suggested that he sit in the stands. What do you make of that? I mean, what do you think happened? So at halftime, now that you know the post-match comments, at halftime, Luis Enrique says, "Hey, Mbappe, we're subbing you off for Colomani." What happened? In your mind, what happened?
Well, I mean, I honestly don't know. The only thing I can think is that Luis Enrique is genuinely, being the tactician that he is, wants to see how these guys play without Mbappe, because this is going to be their new reality after these next 4 months. And so maybe it's something that they've spoken about before, but that reaction doesn't add up with that, with it doesn't add up with the fact that they might have spoken before the match and had an agreement that, hey, we'll be subbing you out at this time. Because why would you then just go to the stands and sort of just piss off and pretty much say you don't care? Because that's what that was. It's all right, y'all not gonna play me. All right, I'll go sit in the stands. And so with those comments and the post game, and obviously I think Lucho is being very, he's being very diplomatic about it. But I don't know what to make of it any more than whatever the reports can be, and we'll find out later what's true or not. But I think one thing that is important here is the underlying theme for all of this is PSG getting out of this old way of running a club. In QSI specifically, and their mentality and how they want to empower the players and give them tons of money and pretty much give them freedom to do whatever they want. This is that disease that you let run rampant in that club. these are the residual effects. If someone has been smoking cigarettes for all their lives, they can quit, but it's not going to happen in a month or a few months. There's still going to be residual effects even after they give it up. And we know Mbappe is leaving, and we're still feeling we're still being affected by something with his presence here, and it's very unfortunate. You can speak to any PSG fan. We don't even care about anything else but just for the club to run normally. We just want normality for even one season or half a season would be great, and we're not going to get that until Mbappe leaves.
Yeah, I wrote a piece about this over on our Substack about, Unai Emery was asked about PSG after he had left the club, and he's like, never really knew who was in charge. And, he was there when Mbappe and Neymar was signed, and he's like, Neymar calls the shots, like Neymar runs the club. And that's how it's been throughout this whole QSI era. Is the players are running the show.
Yeah.
They make the decisions. What I think happened at halftime, I think Luis Enrique has been empowered to see what this squad is like without Mbappe and make the decisions he sees fit. I think you can justify the decision, whether it's, hey, I'm looking ahead to the Champions League game and I want him well rested, or he wasn't playing well. Like, from a sporting perspective, it makes complete sense to sub him off.
Okay. Absolutely.
What I think, we know that Mbappe does not like to be subbed off. He is never subbed off for any reason. He played against an amateur side in January. We saw him get mad at Tuchel for taking him off when PSG were up 5-0. I think, and we also know just from the Real Sociedad game, I think that Marquinhos had said that Luis Enrique was pretty fired up at halftime and sort of lit a fire under the team to come out to a better second half performance. So I don't think it's beyond the possibility that Luis Enrique was fired up. He didn't like the way this team was playing against Monaco. They were sloppy, giving the ball away. He probably didn't like the way Mbappe was playing. And he said, hey, I'm subbing you off. Colomwani, you're in. Maybe Mbappe gave him a look. Maybe he rolled his eyes. Maybe he gave him an FU. I don't know. What he may. I think that there was some sort of dissent.
Yeah.
And Luis Enrique said, I don't want to see you on my bench. You go. I don't care where you go, but I don't. We'll deal with this later. Yeah. And I think Mbappe said, fine. He got dressed, called his mom in the tunnel, and went up to the stands. I think that something around that is likely what happened. Am I way off on that?
No, I don't think so, because in Luis Enrique's post-game match, you can tell he was keeping something. Like, he wasn't revealing everything. He was being very diplomatic. And that's what managers tend to do when there's friction behind the scenes that we're not privy of. And they tend to be diplomatic. And then we later find out that, for instance, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang had a problem with Arteta the whole time. And the reason he sent him away was we found out in the documentary. So you're not off at all. And I think that's the only thing that really justifies that reaction from Mbappe, where he felt like Lucho told him off. Essentially, he's like, hey, if you don't like my decision, don't be here. You can kick rocks, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds harsh, but this is the business that these guys are in.
And Luis Enrique is really the only one from the club who has effectively confirmed everything that we kind of already know, is that Mbappe's leaving. He keeps saying, we need to prepare for life without him. Yes. But there's been no official communication from the club or Mbappe that he is leaving. But here you have Luis Enrique. We have to prepare. Like, this is the second time he said that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's the only thing. And so I think it's bothering him. I think he probably came to PSG thinking, oh, I'm going to get to manage Mbappe for a while. And really he gets just the season. So there's something going on here. My next question for you, should they play Mbappe against Real Sociedad? Because the reason I asked is Ben Jacobs, a journalist, he's pretty well connected, and he said the sources that he had that PSG were sort of stunned at Mbappe's decision to go into the stands. Like they were sort of confused and caught off guard, and they don't know what to make of it. So if that's the case, should there be some sort of punishment? And would you say, hey, bench him for that match against Real Sociedad? Would you do that?
Yeah, if it is confirmed that there was some friction or a disagreement or some words were said or some things were said on the sideline with Enrique and Mbappe, then yes, that his reaction is not acceptable from a club level, from any professional setting. That's not acceptable. So if that is the case, then yeah, you whatever disciplinary action that they have that they would take there, that's up for them to make that decision. But if it's not that, and if they're just all gonna play it off like it's no big thing, then yeah, play him. Like we need him essentially to if we want to make a dent into the Champions League, we'll need him. But if it is confirmed, well, if we find out that he does get suspended or anything, then we'll know that for sure something really transpired there. But yeah, I think it for me, I believe he'll play. It's trending towards him playing. Lucho's comments, obviously, they are diplomatic, but he's still saying like, "Hey, I'm just trying to get my team used to playing without this guy," but he's still, on our team, and so I can still see him playing against Sociedad. Now, if he gets substituted in that match, in the 65th minute, then we'll know that things are not well. For sure, like that will be the confirmation that we all need, because it's happening in league matches where the end results weren't really detrimental to us. But if it happens in the Champions League, that'll be a different story.
And of course, this match against Real Sociedad is at their building, and you'll have the Spanish press is going to be there, and what they're going to want to know about. They're going to latch onto this.
Oh, they're loving this. They're loving this right now. They're eating this up. I already know it.
Man, oh yeah. So it's going to be a lot of drama. It's a delicate dance, right? Because everything we heard about what's going to happen with Mbappe going to Real Madrid, that it's not really done with PSG in terms of negotiating those exit terms. There's the loyalty bonuses and whatever else is in his contract that maybe he would forego that so that he could, give PSG some more money, or maybe he would give whatever the signing bonus is from Real Madrid, he would give it to PSG. There's some niceties on Mbappe's side, at least that's what's being reported. So PSG may not want to jeopardize that, but also at the same time, if you're going all in on this, like preparing for life after Mbappe, if you're going all in on no one's bigger than the team, from what I saw tonight, there's absolutely no excuse for it. And if you are having that mentality and that's the way you want to move, you can't play him. You have to suspend him for at least the game. Sort of like when Messi went to Saudi Arabia and skipped training and didn't tell anyone. They suspended him. They've suspended Rabiot for going to a nightclub, after a loss. And so they've done it before. They benched Mbappe at the beginning of the season. They're not against benching people and punishing them. So I think there's probably some really difficult conversations going on right now. And we'll have to just keep an ear on social media and see what we find out there. Any final thoughts on the Mbappe situation before we move into next week's match?
We just ready for it to be over, and that's all. I'm really done with this story. From a journalistic standpoint, what else can you write about? What else can you talk about then? Especially from a PSG perspective, a PSG fan. We're tired. We're ready to actually flip the page into the new PSG, building the team through the youth and bringing players who actually care about the badge, who actually want to fight for this club. So yeah, I'm just ready for it to be over. Honestly,
I'm ready for Mbappe to go.
Yeah,
give me Xavi Simons. I need him like yesterday.
Yes,
can we please get that man here? All right, let's leave that one there and just let's get into Real Sociedad. Speaking of that match, because give me your thoughts on what you think is going to happen. PSG, they go in with a 2-goal lead. It's going to be Real Sociedad are not in a great run of form right now. They've got injuries, but we know what can happen when PSG go to Spain with a lead in the Champions League. So, if you were Luis Enrique? What are your tactics? What's the mentality you want the team to have? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to go there looking to kill them off because they are a scrappy team. The first leg, I was fully expecting that to be a cagey match, in which it was until that first goal sort of opened things up for PSG, and Sociedad were trying to recover, and they left themselves exposed for the killer shot essentially by Barcola. Um, but I fully expect. Well, I think what Enrique should do is set the team up very offensive minded in terms of we're going to try to keep possession of the ball, which is something that we tend not to do when we go away, whether it be to Spain or to England or when we're traveling in these big Champions League matches. But I think that you have to kill them off because these dudes they're scrappy. Don't let their form or the where they sit in the La Liga table. You don't want to use that and get ahead of yourself and think it's going to be a cakewalk. You have to go and kill them off. We don't know who we're going to get in the next round, but I think tactically I would try to put out my strongest 11. Especially given everything that's going on with the club, with the noise, with Mbappe, you really want to, this is an opportunity to really solidify, like, hey, we're moving forward and we're taking these things serious and we want to solidify ourselves within this tournament. So I think tactically, ideally, I would love to kill them off because if you try to sit back and absorb pressure, anything can happen. And we've been in these scenarios before. We have demons that are hunting us till this day, going into a second leg with the league. Going to Spain, anything can happen. So yeah, I think I would go there with the mentality to try to kill them off early.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that. I mean, are we positive that PSG's best team right now, the way they play, is a team without Mbappe? Because I think a front three of Dembele, Ramos, and Barcola is very dangerous. With Fabian Ruiz behind them and Zaire-Emery and Vitinha, you've got some playmakers there. I think from what we saw in the second half against Monaco, and then looking back at PSG's previous match, I thought that PSG have seemed to play more as a team.
Yeah.
When Mbappe isn't there, someone had mentioned, I'm not sure, maybe it was Mark Damon or someone had said something about, Mbappe is sort of like a vacuum. He just sucks the every pass and all of the tension's on him. And when he's not in the game, you start to see the pitch open up. You start to see the passing, and you see more skill from some of PSG's, I guess maybe you would say, more role players. And so I wonder if you go to Real Sociedad and you're going to want to maybe keep possession and kind of run the clock out and frustrate them a little bit, hit them on the counter. Do you and then maybe do you go with Ramos, who's more of a goal poacher? Maybe you don't even need Mbappe in this one, and you use him as a super sub. Maybe that. And it sounds crazy to say PSG's best side might not be with Mbappe, but from what we've seen in the last two matches, it might be.
Yeah, no, it's not far fetched at all because, and I wrote about this in the piece. I wrote about Barcola, which I believe will be out soon.
Yes, sir. Yeah, working on that one.
and I think PSG have been really obviously very reliant on Mbappe offensively, and we allude to Colomani not scoring all the goals that we expect him to. Gonzalo Ramos not scoring all the goals we expect him to. It's because these guys, when they do score or they do assist, it's just them picking up the crumbs that Mbappe left off because he's so dominant when he has the ball. The midfielders are so reliant on him to start attacks, to try to feed him the ball. And so when he's not there, this is the same thing that we had with Neymar and Messi. Like when those guys are not there, there's more cohesion. There's more a sense of let's rely on each other rather than relying on this one individual who, if he doesn't have a good game, then like we're all toast. And so and I mean, that's a formidable front three, whether it's Ramos or Colomani with Barcola and Dembele on either side of them. That's a very, I'm not going to say it's top in Europe, but that's a very solid front three that you can go into any game expecting chances created at the very least. And obviously, you have people who are capable of scoring the goals. And so, it depends. It totally depends on if there are going to be disciplinary actions taken on Mbappe for what transpired today. But if he's available, honestly, I would play him. But if he's not available, we'll get to see those guys play without him, and Lucho can really have tape to see how these guys play in a big match without Mbappe.
And let me, from Ethan from PSG Fan Club Boise, he had this tweet February 25th. He said, Gonzalo Ramos now has 8 goals on just 1,144 minutes played this season, which is a .63 goals per 90. That scoring rate is second on the team, only behind Mbappe. So when Ramos gets a chance to play, he is scoring. And to kind of go against my own point that I just made, if you put, I just feel like Real Madrid, they're loving this drama. They would love nothing more than for PSG to bench him and sit him, because he's going to have a busy summer. We don't know about the Olympics, but you have the Euros. So they would love for Mbappe to not play as much so they get a fresher player. We all know injuries can happen at any moment. So, I wonder if there's something to that where PSG may not want to bench, Mbappe, who probably gives them a really solid chance of advancing, and we all know how important that is. So it again, in the contract stuff, so it's a delicate situation. I'm not sure. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. But PSG should be able to see this match out. I like what you're saying. Go in there if you get at least one goal, because I'm just looking at Real Sociedad's last fixtures. They lost to Mallorca in the Copa del Rey. Penalties.
They lost in penalties.
1-1, and then they lost to at home to Villarreal 3-1. So, and then they play Sevilla tomorrow early morning my time. So, I'll keep an eye on that, how they perform against Sevilla. But they're not scoring a ton of goals. They didn't score against us. They really didn't have any shots on goal. So I feel like if we just go and get one goal, we're through. It shouldn't be an issue. The problem is if they do score early, we all know what can happen. So, man, it's going to be difficult. But I think Luis Enrique is going to get done. Give me a score prediction. What do you think? What's the final score on this one?
I can see this being easily 1-0. 1-0. I can see a 1-0 match because, like I said, they don't Real Sociedad are not a scoring team. If you look at the way they're playing, they don't score a bunch of goals, but they are. And this might sound crazy if you go look up their numbers right now. They're giving up goals. Generally, they're very solid defensively, but they have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of good players missing. But them being home, having the fans behind them, I can see them at least trying to have a respectable result where they won't let it get out of hand. And it could be a cagey match where PSG nick a goal, and like you said, just one goal is enough for us to comfortably get through.
Yeah, I read that stat earlier. This is the first time in 25 matches or something where PSG didn't score at least one. So I think there's no way they're going to not score 2 games in a row. So give PSG at least a goal. Being at home, fighting, they're a scrappy team. They've got some good players who can score. We know PSG's defense can be opened up at times. I'll give them a goal. So I'll go 1-1 in this one. PSG will advance 3-1 on aggregate. Go to the next round where they will inevitably draw Real Madrid and then let chaos ensue. We'll talk more about the draw. Hopefully we get through. So that game, March 5th, it'll be exciting. Make sure you tune into that one. All right, John, we're coming up on time, but I've got one more story I wanted to ask you about. This one came up after the final whistle, and it's interesting. So there's a report out of Denmark, and this was from World Soccer Talk, I think is where I saw it. There's a report out of Denmark that claims that transfer guru Fabrizio Romano, that he accepted payment to post a rumor about an FC Copenhagen player. And basically what Fabrizio had said is that the player had no intentions of signing a new contract and that several top clubs were interested in signing him. And all this boils down to essentially clubs and players are paying Fabrizio Romano for the publicity that comes from being on his social media accounts. And this is all alleged. It's not proven. I think the magazine that is breaking the story, they're trying to get an interview with Fabrizio and nothing more other than what I'm reporting here. And this is all alleged. But we do know that Fabrizio tweets a lot about PSG and their transfer dealings and what players are doing and not doing. He was the one that broke the Mbappe news, and I remember at the time I was thinking, well, how did he get this? Who broke this? Was it Real Madrid, or who gave it to him? Was it Real Madrid or Mbappe or PSG? So, what is your take on this? You basically have a journalist. If this comes out to be true, you have someone who's got tens of millions of followers on several platforms, and it's kind of like a pay-to-play operation. And he's having an impact on the transfer market, if it's true. So, what do you think about it?
Well, I mean, it's obviously there's a conflict of interest. There's many red flags there for me. In terms of football journalism, I think the underlying, because this is where this story lives within the journalism, because essentially that's what Fabrizio technically does. There's no rules. This is what I've gathered from following football news within the last 5 or 6 years. There's just no more rules. No one to be held accountable for falsified story, for stories that they dragged on or just literally just made up, and there's no accountability from a journalistic standpoint. And so when there's no rules, things like these, like this, it's inevitably gonna come up. Obviously, Fabrizio has a lot of power within his job, and this is the thing that happens when you're the one guy. Obviously, there's a lot of trusted and journalists out there who break news, but for football, Fabrizio is that guy, and when you're that one guy, obviously there's people trying to pay you under the table to get information out. And I don't know if you remember Shams, who covers the NBA.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He had a deal with, I believe it was FanDuel or DraftKings or one of those gambling websites, and he tweeted out a draft in the NBA draft before it happened. And it's like, so you're pretty much, you're tilting odds and people who bet and things of that nature. And so it becomes a little sketchy there, and so I don't like it, obviously, and I think it's there's a malpractice to it journalistically. As a journalist, it's something that doesn't sit right with me if people are having to pay to get stories out, to pay to get their information out, or propaganda or whatever they may be. And then as a journalist, from Fabrizio's standpoint, if this is true, this is a lack of integrity. There's a lack of integrity there. And for me, again, it underlines the lack of rules, essentially, as it pertains to football journalism, because everyone is pretty much doing whatever they want, and this is pretty much a child of that.
Well said. I don't think I disagree with any of that. And I just want to read, I want to give World Soccer Talk the credit here. They tweeted out, they said, Fabrizio Romano has been accused of spreading rumors about players on social media in return for money. Danish media also allege clubs would pay Romano thousands of dollars for mentions on Romano's social media accounts. I completely agree with everything. I mean, the state of football journalism, and we kind of joked earlier about, the media in Spain and how they can be, but man, it is brutal. I mean, could you imagine Woj or Adam Schefter here in the U.S., who are the guys you go to for NFL and NBA breaking news, if it came out that they were accepting money from the Lakers or wherever, and put this out there, this report, I mean, they would probably be fired.
Yeah, they would be out of a job.
ESPN.
They would be out of a job. Yeah.
It's so unnecessary. I mean, there's so many ways to make money on social media. I mean, if Fabrizio had a little tip jar on his Twitter, I'm sure people would donate. Maybe he does. I haven't looked. Or if he has, subscribe. And if you want the information that I have, you need to subscribe. Do more of that. If he's accepting money from these clubs and stuff, nothing's going to happen. And I don't even think this is the worst part of what football journalism does. And he's just. It's just so different than what I think you and I are used to here in the U.S. We would expect him to be fired, but I just think that this is no big deal. It's a nothing burger because it's just so rampant.
Well, this is the thing. Like, this is the question. Like, if there was to be like a governing body or someone to discipline this thing, if it's allegedly, if it's confirmed to be true, who would be that person? Who would be that body? Would it be FIFA? Yep. Would it be UEFA? Who knows? Nobody knows, because all these things are just kind of made up.
And he's independent, so it's not like he works for The Guardian or ESPN and someone could fire him for doing it. He's independent. He can do whatever he wants. I think if we, as football fans, want this to change, don't follow them, don't retweet them, don't engage. You stop doing that, then they're in trouble.
Exactly.
Take away their megaphone. But I don't see that happening anytime soon because they have so much power. They've built up this large following. It's crazy. So
what's insane is if you look on most of Fabrizio's tweets, under the tweets, nobody's actually even responding to the thing that he's tweeting. They're just putting Messi or Ronaldo or Pessi or Panado, and it's just like a cesspool of a bunch of BS. And I miss the days where we just found out when something happened, when it actually happened, and like I'm okay with that. I don't need to know 3 months ahead that Mbappe is going to Madrid and these things. Like, this is the climate that we're in now. We've kind of adapted to it, but like I'm very cool on like just finding out when it happens. Like that's okay too.
Well, I will say that this has been one damn good podcast. I hope everyone out there has enjoyed it because we had a great conversation about several big topics. We recapped PSG's scoreless draw against Monaco. We talked about Mbappe and looked ahead to Real Sociedad. So a lot of good info. I hope you all enjoyed it. John, let's get you out of here. Enjoy your weekend. We got a big game next week. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll chat soon. Any final words for you before we let you go?
No, just follow me on Twitter at Jon Olangi, JONOLANGI. And just stay tuned for more work. Again, appreciate you, Ed, for letting me come on today.
Hey, thank you for staying up late. I know it's late over there on the East Coast, and we've got a great piece from John on Bradley Barcola, which I'm editing. We'll hopefully get it up this weekend. So head over to PSG Talk Substack. It's free. Go ahead and subscribe. You'll get that right in your inbox. You can read that piece from him. And thank you again for listening to this episode. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe. Leave us a review if you can. We would love that. And bye for now.